a guy I've not talked to in quite some time. And, he didn't want to talk to me while LeBron's just rewriting the record books. The great Ric Bucher, who you can see on Speak this afternoon and moving forward in basketball season, I would imagine. Rick, thank you so much for taking the time. I want to get to the All-Star game, but first, there is some actual news today. The Clippers have added Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
And I'll just give you my very quick take on it. You tell me if you agree. I think Russ is I had him ranked 35 of the 50 greatest players the last 50 years. I think he's an all-timer. I think he's a legend. I think he's clearly a great dude off the court. And I think when that how good he was is kind of being maligned by contemporary analysis of him. I also think he is incapable of contributing to winning basketball right now, and it is a baffling decision by the Los Angeles Clippers. What do you make of what I just said, and what do you make of the move?
It's certainly a gamble, and it feels desperate. Now, we knew that the Clippers were looking for a true point guard. It's why they moved Reggie Jackson and John Wall out. It's why they brought Eric Gordon and Bones Nyland in. And we've only seen, a game or two of them, and it's already been decided, no, we need to add something more. I'm going to associate this, or I'm going to attribute this to Steve Ballmer and his tech background. What do you do with tech? You're always fixing it. You're always working on a bug. You're always changing things up, trying to move things forward. And sometimes you just need to let things settle and group. As far as Russ, I could see where his energy and maybe his need for redemption is going to motivate him and add a piece, because the Clippers at times have felt like they're kind of sitting back and waiting. And Russ, as we know, does not sit back and wait for anything. Yeah. So I could make an argument why his energy might be something that they need. But it is a huge risk and a huge gamble, because what he has demonstrated over and over is that he can't take just a little role. Like, you either have to be all in on Russ playing, or forget about it. And so I'm looking at them, and I really like the addition of Eric Gordon. I don't know if Bones is going to be able to contribute, but I really like what Eric brought. And to me, they need continuity more than anything else. And so now you're adding one more wrinkle to the equation.
They are adding him for the exact reason, the same logical tree that the Lakers added him for. Now, I understand the Lakers traded the farm, and they're getting him for free. I totally get that, so it's not that level of risk. But the Lakers' logic was, all right, our stars, LeBron and AD, aren't going to play every night. So the nights they don't play, Russ can be the old Russ. Also, it's a 100-game season. We have an older team, so we want someone who's going to go, 100% effort every night, all those things. It's the same logical tree, but at the end of the day, this is a guy who in modern basketball offensively is broken. And in any era of basketball, defensively hasn't been a plus. And even in his heyday, was a historically inefficient playoff performer. Would at some point in his career could help you in the playoffs. I just don't. The Clippers, to me, Rick, this year in this Western Conference had the best chance they've had in this entire era to go on a real run if you keep your fingers crossed Kawhi Leonard can somehow be healthy for 2 months. And now they just added a variable that it was to me such an unnecessary risk that they took on right here.
I agree. And the added issue here is you've only got 20-some games. And it's not as if the Clippers have had everybody on the floor to this point. So we're adding another piece. If you're trying to work Russ into the equation or try to figure out what role he's going to play, that requires attention that they really need to be putting on getting all of the other more meaningful pieces together. So it is a risk. It's a gamble. I can, if I close one eye, I can see why they would do it. But when I add everything together, I don't see the reason.
All right, so Mike Malone said yesterday's All-Star game was the worst game ever played, something to that effect.
Yep.
It did not resemble even a pickup basketball game.
Yep.
I have
no lies told so
reason
far
for it. No lies told. So here's my explanation. And here's who I think deserves the blame.
Yeah.
Us in the media, but mostly you, but not just you, but not as much me.
Yeah, okay.
And here's why.
Yeah.
We have turned sports, all of it, into a binary count the rings conversation. Did you win a championship? Then you sucked. You know what I mean? Who's the best ever? Count the rings. How good of a season did he have? Did he win the title? We have made it clear in the media that all we are going to reward is championship success. And the players have then internalized that and said, okay, so why would I compete in a slam dunk contest?
Yeah.
Why would I compete in an all-star game?
Yeah.
Why would I even compete on back-to-back nights when it could, by 1%, hurt my ability in the postseason?
Mm-hmm.
How much of what we saw last night is the logical end result of the media's obsession with the end of the journey rather than the actual journey itself?
I knew that this conversation was going to turn mean and contentious at some point. I just didn't know when. No, because
I'm part of that too.
You could not be more wrong. And the problem.
Oh, wow.
The problem is that we don't value winning enough anymore. It's no longer necessary to win the All-Star game or championships because the analytics say you're a great player. So let's give, if we're assigning blame, the players, I agree with you, are probably last on the list. The media do have a hand in it. Fans do have a hand in it. The teams have a hand in it because we're handing out max salaries to players who have not won. We are labeling players as stars and MVPs who have not won. And so where is the emphasis or the need to win for a player to have individual success? Do they need to win the All-Star game? No, nobody cares. But the All-Star game is just a microcosm of what has happened to the league in general, which is if you have great highlights, if you have great statistics, you're a star. And you're a star equitable with all the other stars that came before. So my issue is that we are not rewarding or valuing winning enough, and that has basically streamed down to affecting the All-Star game.
No, listen, I don't know if that's not as contentious. This won't get as contentious as you implied there. I think you actually make some fair points, but I also think you would have to acknowledge that part of the load management issue is teams and players everyone has accepted that everything that happens prior to the playoffs is essentially meaningless.
Agreed.
And that none of it matters. And the regular season it's not that it's lesser than the postseason, which it always has been. It's that one thing matters everything, and the other thing, the only thing that matters is, did you get into the postseason?
Yeah.
And when we have that logic tree, and that's the path we follow, and by the way, I think that's why we're likely about to have a 3-time MVP that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in the league. And so let's talk here.
Okay.
So if you have to get a bucket, Rick, who's the number one guy you want to give? Let's just say everyone in the league's healthy.
Yeah.
Who's your number one pick?
Probably Kevin Durant.
Who's number 2?
Steph Curry.
3.
Oh, boy, now it gets watered down.
I'm putting you on the spot. Giannis, it wouldn't be next for you? Have to get a bucket, just go put your head down?
Probably yes. Yes.
Yeah, and Luka's probably shortly thereafter at some point.
Joel Embiid's in there, too.
Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
In there, too.
Yeah.
And then once we get past those guys, then you mention a guy like LeBron and a guy like Jokic and a guy like Tatum. Agreed?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there? Okay.
Sure.
You got to get a stop. I could name 10 guys you want on the court before I mention Jokic,
Giannis is number 1.
Giannis is number 1 with a bullet.
Yep.
And Embiid's probably number 2, and then Anthony Davis on there. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's not the guy you got to have to get a bucket.
Yeah.
He's not the guy you got to have to get a stop.
Yeah.
He hadn't gone on a deep playoff run in 3 years, and that was in the bubble, and all you guys tell me the bubble doesn't count.
Yeah.
We also have history. And I value the history. I'm not arguing with you on this. I'm asking you to join me in this righteous indignation, okay?
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a pretty damn good player. He won back-to-back MVPs early in his career. Had already won a title.
Yeah.
And the year he was going to win his third straight, he averaged 30, 16, and 5. And the voters were like, 3 in a row. Give it to Dave Cowens, who averaged 20, 15, and 5. And then Jordan was going to win 3 in a row. People were like, 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Give it to Barkley and have Akeem finish ahead of Jordan. And then LeBron was going to win 3 in a row, and people were like, 3 in a row? Come on, give it to Derrick Rose. And then Giannis was going to win 3 in a row, and everyone's like, he's flamed out in the playoffs. He got 1 vote. 3, give it to, you know what, it'll be fun. Give it to the Jokic kid.
Yeah.
And now Jokic is going to win them all.
Yeah.
He's just never going to stop winning them, and everyone says I'm wrong for being like, what are we doing here? Where do you stand on Nikola Jokic looking like the runaway 3-time MVP?
Well, I don't have a problem with him winning it this year because this might be the first year that I would vote for him, or put him at the top of my ballot.
Me too. It's the first year. Go ahead.
But it goes to what we were just talking about. We don't value winning. They were what? They finished 5th. One of the last 2 years in the
last year they were 6th.
Yes.
So they're 6th.
How are we equating that with being an MVP? Now, what he's doing this year and the fact that Denver is at the top of the Western Conference, like I'm good with him being an MVP and an MVP candidate this year. But the previous 2 years, for me, it was either Joel Embiid or Giannis. And I would still say Giannis is very much in that conversation this year in terms of who is going to be at the top of my ballot. So you get no argument for me on that. I really don't like the idea that we're avoiding voting for him because it would historically mean 3 in a row. The problem is that we didn't get it right the first 2 times, and now we're stuck in this position. Steve Nash was exactly the same.
Yes.
His 3rd year was his best year, but we could not vote for him, or it could not be given to him that year because he'd already won 2 in a row.
Also, God dog it, it wasn't in the Constitution you couldn't serve more than 2 terms as president until in the last 70 years. But everyone was like, George Washington didn't do it, I guess I won't do it. Now, FDR broke that, and then they had to put it in the rules. But it shouldn't have to be written down that this is how it's done when we see this is how it's done. And I agree with you. This year, my last 3 years, 2 years ago, you and I argued about it, I would have voted Chris Paul. The numbers didn't suggest it, but the winning and everything he did. Last year, I argued for Luka. This year, Jokic has the best case he's had. But what frustrates me so much is last year, when those of us were arguing against Jokic, saying they're the 6th seed, everyone's like, it doesn't matter. Teammates, bad teammates, and Luka's got this all-star cast around him.
Right.
And this year, when we're like, it's not Jokic, they're like, they're the 1 seed. What are you talking about? And can I show you the Raptor stat where he's the greatest player of all time? Not recognizing if any of your stats say Nikola Jokic is the greatest player of all time, that stat is flawed. But whatever. I just care about history, Rick. You and me. I could show you all these, man. Jokic is having the greatest 3-year stretch in the history of basketball. It's unbelievable. He gets picked 7th in the All-Star game every year. Nobody thinks that he's a great defender. Nobody thinks he's the number 1 bucket guy in the league. He's the best player in the league. I'll lose my mind on it. I'm a hater.
This is where I don't quite, and this is probably a conversation for another day with you and I, but how is it that you are able to accurately parse the issues with Jokic being MVP, and yet the drum that you have beaten for LeBron James this year still being a great player is based on the same thing? It's statistics. No, the narrative is the team's not good enough so that he's not winning. But his numbers say that he's still a great player. It is basically the same argument, except you're making it in the other direction.
Hold on, but you haven't heard. You're just making up LeBron James takes about me. Right now, I think LeBron is somewhere from the 8th to 10th best player in the league.
You are must-see TV for me. What are you talking about?
If you think there's 10 guys better than him, I disagree with you. I don't argue LeBron's still a top 5 player in the league. Now, come the playoffs, if they get in, would he be a top 5 guy I'd want? Maybe. Just maybe. We'll have to wait and see. Ric Bucher, I'm late. I got to go. See you on Speak in a few hours. I really appreciate you doing double duty today, my man.
You got it.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.